Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier, taking a look at race number 10 on Tampa Bay Derby Saturday. It is the Grade 3 Florida Oaks. This race for 3-year-old fillies going 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. I want to remind existing DRF Bets customers that if you bet race number 1 on any of these major Kentucky Derby prep programs, whether it be at Aqueduct, whether it be at Tampa Bay, whether it be at Turfway, you will be rewarded, as we'll see from this graphic. Bet $25 to win on one horse in race 1, get a $10 bonus. DRF Bets, ready, set, bet. Here's the field for the Grade 3 Florida Oaks. Again, it's 1 mile and a 16th. The number 5 is Concrete Rose, Matt, going out for trainer Rusty Arnold. 7-2, morning line favorite for the Florida Oaks. We have not seen Concrete Rose since the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Turf, where she took on a freak of nature named Newspaper of Record, and she did it over a yielding turf course to boot. Throw that race out, you're left with 2 really good performances.
No, agreed, 100%. I think she's a nice filly for Rusty Arnold. And like you say, draw a line through the Breeders' Cup. He had so many different things going on there. The turf, the competition, obviously Newspaper of Record. The 2 runs prior were both awesome. The run up at Saratoga going 5.5, and then off that layoff, that run in the Jessamine. She just looks like a really, really talented filly. And if she makes that sort of natural progression from her 2-year-old year to her 3-year-old year, I would expect a forward move, and she should be right there at the wire.
But we got 4 months to deal with. And does that worry you? You know there are a lot of big pots for 3-year-old fillies on the turf this year especially. Do you think Rusty Arnold will really have Concrete Rose cranked up, and do you want to take her at a relatively short price?
Well, I guess that's the thing. I mean, this is a race where, to me, there are a number of horses that are relatively evenly matched. Maybe the figs don't match up identically, but I do think they're all within sort of shouting distance of one another. So from a price standpoint, I don't know that I would want to take anything too short. But if you told me 7-2, even if she's, I don't know if you can really have a horse 90% as opposed to 100%. But if she's not even 100% cranked up, I think 7-2 would be a fair number.
Second choice on the morning line is the number 10 Stellar Agent, who finished ahead of Concrete Rose as a 70-1 chance in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. Not only did she have the misfortune of facing Newspaper of Record that day, but she took on Newspaper of Record in the Grade 2 Miss Griot 2 starts back. Get rid of the Newspaper of Record races, and she really powered away to a nice score at Saratoga. She finished ahead of a horse in the Breeders' Cup that came back to run a good third last week with an 84 buyer in the Grade 3 Here Comes the Bride. Nice turf pedigree by More Than Ready out of a stakes place turf router. Stellar Agent, I think, has got just as much ability as Concrete Rose, but we have to deal with a layoff.
And have to deal with a pretty tough post breaking from 10 out of 11. That's going to be interesting to see how Flo overcomes that. But I agree with you. She's another one. She's done nothing wrong in 3 lifetime starts. I think, if you took Newspaper of Record out of those 2 races, she's probably right there in each of them. I think she's very, very talented, and there's no reason to believe that she won't take another step forward. The interesting thing here for her, 3 times she's gone out, at no point has she encountered firm going. She's going to get firm turf on Saturday.
Let's take a look at the 2 Mega Fortune. It appears she's found what she wants to do, and that's racing on the turf and going middle distances for John Kimmel. Over the past 3 years, Kimmel, with last out maiden winners on turf, 27% winners, a 321 ROI. This horse stunned the racing world with a 41-1 win in her turf debut last time out. Now, she's got that tail swishy motion that I know maybe we don't like, but she's got a little bit of a pedigree by Painter. She's a half to a multiple stakes place runner, albeit on dirt, named My Sweet Stella. And as we see from this Timeform US pace projector, Mega Fortune might be out front early.
Yeah, we've talked about horses and pedigrees in the past. I brought up the Orbs, but the Painters as well. I think the Painters are really turf routers, really, as far as what he's going to end up being. The other thing, too, is she didn't win like a 41-1 shot. I thought she never looked like a loser, really, at any point. She was just cruising. That was first-time blinkers, stretching out onto the turf. I agree with you. Look, the tail flashing, she resented the whip. I don't love that in a spot like this. It's going to be much tougher. But if she gets out there and for some reason the pace is a little bit more moderate, I'm not going to doubt her.
If this projector is right, though, it worries me because the two horses pressing Mega Fortune are the two favorites, Concrete Rose, Stellar Agent. This is the acid test for Mega Fortune from a pace and class perspective. The 9 is winning envelope. Please draw a line through her most recent race, the Suncoast. I don't believe she is a dirt filly. 2 starts back at Churchill Downs on the turf. She won with ease by 5 lengths. My main concern about that race, Matt, was I thought there was nothing behind her.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I have written awful in underneath.
Well, she
the
beat
N2X.
Slimy that day.
Well, and the other thing, too, is, I go through and look. I know it was good turf that day, but none of her incremental fractions were that fast. And that usually, to me, I understand turf courses that have a ton of moisture in them, they're kind of difficult to get over. But, boy, when none of your quarter miles are sub 25, it makes me wonder how good could that race have been?
Chad Brown at a price? The number 7 Blowout, 10-1 on the morning line. Jose Ortiz takes the mount. This horse bet to favoritism in a full field of maidens for the career debut at Tampa Bay Downs. I liked the way this filly won. I thought she was still a little bit green. The major concern that handicappers have is this. That was a slow race.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how you chop it up, if you're a fan of Beyer, you're a fan of Time Form, both ratings have the races slow. And like you say, she went on. I like how game she was down the lane. I just find it peculiar. I mean, Chad could have easily run her at Gulfstream, and instead he ships her to Tampa. To me, maybe that's searching for a softer spot. She goes out there, she gets the job done. I mean, she's going to be a price. Like you say, you don't ever get that on Chad in a turf-graded stakes race or a stakes race of any kind. But I just think she's too slow.
Her race is slow, but her race is faster than all 3 of the 6 Zarina's Beyer speed figures, and Zarina has won 2 of 3 starts for a pretty good trainer in Chad Stewart. Here's the formulator fact for Zarina. Past 4 years, Stewart, with 3-year-old last out winners on turf, 27% winners, a 358 ROI. This filly needs, I think, a bit of a pace meltdown in order to get the job done. The pace should be fast, but again, this ex-maiden claimer, got to prove her mettle against graded foes, got to run faster.
Yeah, I think she's a solid little filly, but again, this just kind of feels like it might be a little bit too much for her at this point. If they can get a placing in here, I think they'd be thrilled. I just don't think she's a real win threat.
The 8, Her Royal Highness, tries turf for the first time for Top Connections, Joel Rosario, Graham Motion. The sire, Patio Prado, certainly could step on turf. He wins with 10% of his first-time turf runners. And the dam is already foaled, a stakes-winning turf router, Catch a Rising Star. Just not sure there's enough turf, though, for a first start on the surface against tough graded foes.
Yeah, that was the thing that pulled me back, is that of all places for the first time out on the grass, this is a pretty salty group of 3-year-old fillies. I'm not suggesting she's not going to be able to take to it. It's just she's going to need to be so much better on the turf than she is on the dirt. And I think she's actually okay on the dirt, but she's going to need to be so much better if she's going to win this thing.
The 11, Margaret's Joy, is a maiden making her second lifetime start, but she's got a big pedigree. She's by English Channel. The dam was multiple stakes place. She was second in the Woodbine Oaks on Synth. She was also stakes placed on turf. She is a foal to a stakes-winning turf horse named Spooky Channel. This horse ran okay in the career debut against maidens, but this is just leaps and bounds a different kind of competition.
I think you're going to take this one back from that far outside post. You try to make that one run. If you hit the board, you're thrilled. If you get even more than that, I mean, you're over the moon. She just looks a little slow and a little sort of class compromised at this point. But again, take a shot, drop back, and make one run. Before
we get to our top picks, I want to talk about the number 4, Elsa, winner of the Grade 3 Jimmy Durante, 2 starts back at Del Mar. Made her seasonal debut at the Fairgrounds, where she was a 2-5 favorite. It was a really oddly run race. You never see Corey Lannery 5 wide. And I wonder if Corey just thought, I'm riding the 2-5 shot, I'm on the best horse, and I'm not going to worry about it. And the next thing you know, someone snuck up inside of Elsa and beat her down to the wire. What'd you think of that race? What'd you think of that effort? What do you think of Elsa overall?
You know, initially when I went back and watched that race, I was a little bit disappointed that she ended up being as flat as she was. And again, she was ridden like she was just much the best in there, which I have to be honest, I don't know that I would have argued going into that race looking at the PPs. But then looking at it some more, I was more impressed with Winter Sunset's finish. I kind of feel like Elsa just got turned away by a better filly on that day. Now, maybe second off the bench, Elsa's going to be a tighter version and ready to roll here. But you know what? I just think she got beat by a better horse on that day.
She'll be reunited with Joe Bravo, who was aboard for the Jimmy Durante win. Now let's take a look at our selections for the Grade 3 Florida Oaks, one of your recent horse watches on our Out of the Gate program here on DRFTV. La Fève for Chad Brown. This filly ran really well to be third off a long layoff in her seasonal debut against an extremely good filly in a bit special.
Yeah, and you know what? There's some other pieces to it as well for me. The obvious things, there was a slow pace. She rallied wide, first start off of a layoff. But to me, I think she's going to appreciate even more distance in this mile on the 16th that we're going to get here on Saturday. And I just love the late turn of foot. She really flew home. She got her final quarter in 23-1. Given that slow pace up front, very difficult for her to make up enough ground, I think, in order to get there. I expect a tighter version second time out. And if the pace projector's accurate, she should have plenty to run at. I think if you're a Rad, you try to save some ground early on, you tip out into the clear rounding the far turn and just try to run them down.
Nice inside post, nice pedigree, being a half to a Group 3 stakes winner in France. Winter Sunset's got the pedigree. She's by Tappet out of the multiple Grade 1 stakes winning turf router Winter Memories. She is a perfect 2 for 2. I love her versatility. Gate to wire winner of the career debut, and in that aforementioned Elsa race, while Elsa was out in the middle of the track, I liked how Winter Sunset professionally split horses with a 4-wide bid on the turn, kind of bounced off Elsa an early stretch, and despite drifting out just a little bit in the lane, was able to get away from Elsa in the late stages. Considering this pedigree, Winter Sunset, I think, could be any kind, and I think 6-1 on the morning line is fair.
And I like the way that she scooted home that day. I mean, she really finished nicely. And again, initially I was disappointed in Elsa, but at the same time, I kind of talked myself into being more impressed with Winter Sunset. The only concern I have for each of them, and I don't even want to say it's a concern because the value is going to be there. I'm going to be curious to see how they stack up against some of these big girls in here, whether it's Concrete Rose or anyone else, because we know those are legitimately talented girls, especially when they were 2-year-olds. I want to find out if the fairgrounds form transfers.
Maybe they're catching them at the right time off the layoff. However, both of our horses have recency. Give me numbers.
110-5-2.
I'm going 310-4 in the Grade 3 Florida Oaks, one of many stakes races on Tampa Bay Derby Saturday. Make sure you bet early with DRF Bets. If you are a member, you get a first post bonus, whether it's Aqueduct, Tampa Bay, or Turfway. Bet $25 to win on one horse in race 1. Immediately get a $10 bonus. DRF.com/preps is where you need to go. Approximate post time for the Oaks, the Florida Oaks. 4:50 Eastern. Best of luck.